And then my sister was like, you should get strings on this and learn how to play the guitar. And I think in hindsight, she's mentioned that she was thinking, this guy's not very sporty and he's not particularly good looking. He should have some skill set to be able to impress a potential mate. And so I asked my mom and we put strings on the guitar and then I started to take lessons.
Planet Guitar is very pleased today to talk with Donovan Woods. Welcome, Donovan.
Hi, how you doing? Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You've got a new album out on 12th of July. Things Were Never Good If They're Not Good Now. Could you tell us a little bit about its background?
Um, it's kind of a folk record. It's kind of about the last year of my life. The title is I did a lot of therapy in the last year. I think probably what I went through in the last year is probably described as a midlife crisis. Although I hope I go longer than I hope this is in the middle of my life. But I had a lot of it was a tumultuous year. So the record is about it's about that. It's about kind of taking myself down to the studs and rebuilding the person that I am, trying to figure out a sustainable way to be for the rest of my life, which I think a lot of people do at this age. And the title is it's from a sort of a therapy exercise to help men. We don't like to say our feelings very much, and I don't like to say my feelings. So it's from a therapy exercise to help you say your feelings out loud. You start by saying good things. When things are good, you start by saying, I really am enjoying this pasta or something. You know what I mean? You start by saying good things, and hopefully it leads you to be able to say all your feelings out loud. And so a friend of mine and I were trying to do that more, to say, this is really nice. I'm having a nice time. And one time he said, oh, buddy, well, things were never good if they're not good now. And I thought, no, there's something to that. And it stuck as the title of the record.
Wow, so there are 12 songs. Is it fair to say that a lot of them have been inspired by those therapy sessions?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so. I mean, they're kind of, I mean, it's not full of therapy speak or anything, but they're kind of self-reflective in a way. Um, and I mean, they're always self-reflective. I just think they're a little bit more raw because it was a raw year for me, and I'm hoping it was the worst year of my life because it was not great.
Wow, that's a big thing to say. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem.
You had so much success with Without People in 2020. I was wondering if that made it more challenging to compose this.
It always, I mean, it's interesting. It's the first time, I mean, probably 3 or 4 records ago was the first time I knew that people would even listen to the record when I made it. I mean, before that, I was really just making it for myself because there was no expectation that anyone would hear it. I think that the change from making it entirely for yourself to making it for people who are fans of your music and are waiting for it is a very different feeling. And Without People, certainly, it was the one that I had released the record that got a lot of awards, and Without People was the follow up to that. And it was a lot of people were waiting for it to be good. So there was a lot of pressure on that record. And I think like we were playing bigger spaces and I tried to make the record reflect that. We wanted it to be louder so that we could fill up those bigger rooms. And I sort of have realized since then that that's a bit of a fool's errand, that the challenges in making the songs meaningful in the concert, regardless of how loud they are or how bombastic the songs are. Um, yeah, I mean that there's always a weird expectation, and you have to, like any artist, you have to remind yourself to focus on exactly what you want to do, exactly what brings you artistic satisfaction. And you have to remind yourself of that constantly because there's so many metrics you can read these days. You can find out your popularity to the exact number. I mean, there's a number on everything, and you can get lost in that data if you're not careful. So you have to be really, really vigilant with yourself to just be satisfying your own instincts.
There are really many great tracks on your new record. I've had the joy of listening to over the last 24 hours. But one that stood out for me is your latest single, 116 West Main, Durham. Um, were you in a happy moment when you wrote it?
Yeah, I was. I was. That song brings me, I think more than anything I've put out, there's a sort of ease in that song that I really captured the day I was having. I was having a really nice day. I was having a nice day where I felt like it was okay to be on tour and be myself. I just was in a good mood. And I tried to capture that in the song. I think like I don't have many things that feel breezy, and there's something in that song that is reassuring to me.
I think it's a very special song. It has lots
Thank
of
you.
it has lots of unexpected turns in it, and it's a foot tapper. And well, interestingly, it has a sample from what sounds to me like an advert at the end. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I had listened to a podcast with an author that I loved so much, and I had a clip of her talking. And I won't say who it was because I don't want to get in trouble. But I had a clip of her talking in the song, and we contacted her and asked to use it, and she said no. So we just kind of paraphrased what she was saying. We talked to a lawyer, and the lawyer was like, "You can paraphrase it," and we paraphrased it and got someone else to say it. But it was a quote about living your life through a phone, essentially. I think it's just sort of about what she said. The gist of what she had said is we're so much we're capable of so much more than the little things that we do on our phone all day. And is it really worthy of how spectacular our minds are to allow them to live within this little screen all day, entirely within this little screen? And it was an interesting way to hear it put, and it really resonated with me. And I think the thing that was making me feel good on the day that I wrote that song was that I didn't look at my phone at all. I mean, everybody knows the feeling of forgetting for a moment that they have a phone. Maybe you're at like up at a cabin or a cottage or something, and the feeling is so freeing. And yeah, so that's what it's about.
Another track I really loved, which stood out for me and it touched my heart, was "Back for the Funeral." It's a bittersweet
Oh,
song that I think many will identify with.
yeah. I mean, I think we all get that. We all go home for one eventually, whether it's a family member or whether it's a friend. I think the friend one hits you the most, of course, especially when someone who is the same age as you passes away at any time. It's like an unsettling thing. But yeah, your hometown feels very different for that weekend. And I had just kind of gone through that experience in writing that song, and that's sort of what we were trying to communicate. It was just that outside of time feeling on a trip home like that. You sort of are outside of the real world for a certain extent. I mean, marriages are like that. When kids are born, it's the same thing. They don't kind of adhere to the 24-hour day. It's just sort of outside of time in some weird way. Yeah.
I just wanted to say sorry at this moment for your for the tragic loss of your songwriting partner and friend, Abe Stocklasser.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, that's so nice of you to say. I am still very, very broken up by that, and I love Dave so much, and it is much, much too soon to have lost that guy. He's such a wonderful guy.
He was critical. I understood that he wrote. You both wrote Portland, Maine, on the day you met. Was that correct?
Yeah, yeah. We had met sort of like right, we wrote that 20 minutes after we met, and I'd only heard his voice. They played me some of his demos to see if I wanted to write with him, and I still have those songs. They played me this song of his called Little City, and he sounded like a 57-year-old man. We would have been in our 20s at the time. He sounded like an old man to me. So I walked into the room expecting to see, a grown. It was just a guy who was younger than me, and he just had this old voice. And yeah, we met and we hit it off, and we wrote that song right after we wrote a lot of stuff after that. I think the first five things we wrote together all got recorded by some other artist, and went on a very lucky streak of writing things together. And then we didn't after that we didn't really write much for we just were friends after that. It was much more difficult to write when we knew each other really well for some reason. But we really loved each other a lot.
Going back to your childhood, you were born in Sarnia, Ontario, near Lake Huron. It's full of parks and lakes. It looks like a lovely place to grow up.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's like I mean Sarnia has is kind of derided in Canada because there's so much petrochemical. There's a lot of petrochemical industry around the town. So it gets derided as a polluted place. But in all honesty, I it's beaches and parks, and I mean it's a great place to grow up. And the petrochemical plants meant that your dad had a really good job. So like it really was, it was a pretty good place to grow up.
Do you still have a base there? I'm not sure. Are you still living there?
No, I don't live there now. I live in Toronto now. My parents still live there,
Right.
so I get to go, and all my best friends growing up are still there, so I get to go a lot.
I read that your song "My Cousin Has a Grey Cup Ring" was partly inspired by your father. It kind of hints at a certain jealousy. I was wondering what he thought about that.
What he thought about it?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I mean, that was so early on. I think he was just thrilled to have something like that mentioned. I sort of invented the idea that he was jealous of his cousin. But I mean,
Uh-huh.
aren't we all a
Yeah.
big, strong, we're all a little bit jealous of a big, strong guy, I think. I think it was slightly invented, but his cousin had heard the song and he didn't really like it the guy who it was about, the cousin, he did not like it very much. I don't know. He's since passed, but I don't know. I don't know why he didn't like it. I remember there was an interview where he got asked about it on the radio, and he was sort of brushed it off in a way that made it sound like he really didn't appreciate it, which I always felt bad about. But what are you gonna do?
That was Glenn Weir, I believe, the
Yeah, Glenn Weir, that's right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
full Montreal player. You're writing and singing with your sister from the age of 8. Sounds like a happy childhood.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I had my things. I mean, I have my sadnesses, but I do like I always liked it. I always liked coming up with songs. I had a mom who sang to me a lot, so singing was not weird to me. I try to do that with my kids. It did not seem serious to sing, it felt like a thing that everybody was doing all the time. So I liked it and I still like it. It's a way that I soothe myself still. I mean, if I feel overwhelmed, I still get a guitar and sing. It's nice. It feels nice always.
You have 3 kids now, I believe, between more or less 6 and 12 years old. Is that right?
I do, yeah. 12 to 5. One of them is 5 and one of them's well, just about 12, almost 12.
So are they picking up music, I guess, from their dad now? And
Yeah, they are. I mean, I'm not, nobody ever pressured me to do music. So that's sort of the recipe that I am adhering to myself. My daughter is taking the piano and she very clearly has the same um, brain that I have. So the structure of songs makes sense to her and you can tell, but I'm trying to not get too excited. I'm trying to not get too into it. But you can see also that her brain does the same thing that my brain does with lyrics, which is I'm able to fit any amount of syllables into any melody. So for some reason, I think that's really the only natural talent that I have is for some reason my brain can parse out syllables really easily into music. And I can see that she can do the same thing. She makes up funny joke songs and they're always really funny and good. And that's sort of what I did at that age too. So I can see that she's got it. We'll see if she wants to pursue it. I'm trying to not influence it.
sure. When you were younger, or you said about that time, I thought music was silly and a fun thing to do. Do you still feel that?
Well, it always felt like a thing that you just did for fun in the house. I didn't think that being a musician was a serious. I still am off. I will say that I still, when we're in a high level, just yesterday I was in a meeting at a record label. It was very serious around a table. It's very funny to remind yourself that we're just talking about little melodies about people's feelings that we come up with. That we've made a whole building about that is a little bit absurd. It's the difference between music and the music industry. The music industry is it's like comparing the Niagara Falls to like the restaurants that we built around the Niagara Falls. You know what I mean? One is the attraction, and the other is the thing that we do to like slowly ruin the attraction.
What made you first want to pick up a guitar? Can you remember that moment?
Yeah, I remember very explicitly. My mom had a guitar in the house. She used to play an old classical, a Yamaha classical guitar, which I still have somewhere. I don't think it's in here, but it was you know, the Yamaha classical that you're imagining in your mind right now, the one that everybody had. And she played a few songs and sang. My mom's a singer too, and it was around the house all the time. It didn't have strings on it, and I used it as a GI Joe bass. We used to pretend it was a boat sometimes when we were really little. And then my sister was like, "You should get strings on this and learn how to play the guitar." And I think, in hindsight, she's mentioned that she was thinking, "This guy's not very sporty and he's not particularly good looking. He should have some skill set to be able to impress a potential mate." And so I asked my mom and we put strings on the guitar, and then I started to take lessons. And the lessons were, I thought that I took years of lessons, and I have since asked my mother, and I guess I took lessons only for like 6 months, but I thought it really felt like a lot of lessons to me, but it wasn't that many, I guess. I just learned the basic chords. And the thing I did immediately was write songs. I didn't, my friends who played the guitar were like learning how to play Metallica and stuff. And that was cool, but it never really, I liked it, but it didn't really make much sense to me. I made up my own songs immediately, but I didn't show anybody those songs for about 10 years because it was a little embarrassing.
It's natural that people focus on your passion for music, but I guess that writing and books were possibly equally important to you when you were growing up. Is that fair?
I don't think not. I think not when I was a kid. I don't think I really understood. I mean, yeah, like I mean, I would get into the books we were reading in school, and I could tell that I liked poetry, but I didn't really pursue it. You know what I mean? I had the same thing that any kid has, is I wanted to feel good about myself. So being a musician was like you could be famous from that, and I felt like if you were famous, you would like yourself. So I had that same thing that everybody had. I didn't until my 20s I didn't read a ton. And in my 20s I started to read things. The thing is I started somebody gave me a Richard Ford book by Richard Ford called The Sports Writer, and I read that and I thought, "Oh, that this is I mean to me that's the highest kind of human expression beyond a painting. I think there's a painting and writing a novel to me. I don't have any sense of how you have to be so disciplined and powerful to do it, and have such a rigorous mind. You know, it's always been really impressive to me. And now it's, I mean, I would say it's my only hobby. I try anytime I have, I try to read as much as possible. I think, and I just am so obsessed with language. I'm so interested in language. I'm so interested in the gaps in it and what it does and what it doesn't do, and how you can bend it to your will and make it mean what you need it to mean. And people who are really good at that are really inspiring to me. Yeah, for sure.
When I think of other artists who conjure up in a similar sort of heartfelt way to you, these incredible scenarios very quickly and very colourfully. I think of, for example, Tom Waits. Is he a point of reference for you?
I I have never been a like a active Tom Waits fan, but I will say that every time someone shows me something of his, I'm enamored with it, and I get obsessed with that song for a number of weeks, and I only listen to that song. And it's happened with a bunch of things. I can't name the wizards. Is that what's he building in there? And there's one called a train. Something about Chicago or something that I was obsessed with for a long time. I do think that like that that he is probably the high water mark in terms of artistry, in terms of not he seems uninfluenced by anything that you can name. And I think that to me is like it's the most admirable. He and John Prine to me are sort of untouched by capitalism in a way that is so rare. Yeah.
When you were younger, you moved to Toronto. Was it to go to university you moved to Toronto for originally?
I moved halfway to Toronto to go to university, like about an hour away from Toronto. And then after university, I was in a theater school for a short amount of time. I got kicked out of it, and then I moved to Toronto after that, basically because there was nothing left to do.
What did you study at university?
I studied English and theater. I wanted to be, I thought that I wanted to be an actor, and I had done a bunch of, when I got out of school, I had a bunch of commercials and I acted in some plays. And I just one day, at a commercial audition, I thought, I hate this and I never want to do it again. And I have never done it again since.
Wow.
I, nothing against it. It's occurred to me that I don't know. I just didn't like it. I didn't like what it did to me.
I know that
Also, I met so many friends. Sorry to cut you off. I met
yeah.
so many friends that were becoming successful actors, and a friend of mine who now is like a very successful actor. I met him, and I was like, "Oh, this is an actor. This has nothing to do with me. I'm not. I shouldn't be doing this," and I stopped. Yeah.
I know that during that time in Toronto, you were also playing in bars and starting to share your music with friends. Do you look back at that moment with nostalgia?
Uh, I do. I do. I do. I think like there was a group of us that were kind of all coming up together and we were playing little shows. And you'd make like $100 and it seemed really awesome. Um, the feeling was really fun. I don't when I listened to the songs that I was playing, they were so informed by where I was going to perform them. They were designed specifically to quiet down a room, most of them. And they weren't really, I wasn't really expressing what I wanted to express. I was just trying to find some way to sing effectively in a loud, noisy bar. And uh, so I'm not really inspired by the songs I was writing back then, but they were so informed by where we're going to play. It really is true that the history of music is the history of the rooms it was played in. It really is true. So when I think back, it was really fun. There was no pressure, and people were really impressed when you could sing and play. It was really fun. Nobody is impressed by that anymore with me. You have to be really good. You can't. But back then, everyone just went, "Oh, you can sing." What a joy. And I do remember it being really fun. Yeah.
You've said that receiving your Juno Award was a career high point for you. If you had to choose two other career high points, which would you choose?
Oh, oh. I think when Abe and I wrote Portland, Maine, and Tim McGraw recorded it. And it took a really long time for him to record it. That to me was I had never nobody had ever recorded one of my songs before, and I still feel like there really isn't a higher compliment than when another artist wants to record something that they didn't write. It feels like you wrote a really good song, if that's true. And I remember the feeling of it was the first time that I ever thought, oh, I might actually be a songwriter. Um, and that was way before I won a Juno. I think that was probably that feeling was really singular and it really did make me feel like, oh, I can maybe do this. I can maybe have this job. Um, I don't think I've written a song that's markedly better than that song since. So I don't know that it was the watershed moment that I thought it was, but it was certainly important. The other one would just be I get to write a lot with um, a songwriting hero of mine whose name is Laurie McKenna, who's a folk Americana writer from Boston. And just, and I can't say when the moment would have been, but just getting to be friends and collaborators with Laurie to me is, every time I'm writing with her or around her, I can't believe that I get to do it. It's such a pleasure. She's such a smart, uh, aware, and just like a beautiful collaborator and a beautiful artist, and just being around her is a real joy. And I feel so lucky to be able to do it.
What a lovely tribute.
Oh, she's so nice. Do you know any of her music? She's just
No,
the
I
most
don't,
lovely.
but I will check
Oh,
it out.
she's so good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She wrote a lot of country hits for big artists in Nashville, but she also puts out her own records, and The first record that she put out was this record called Bitter Town, and Faith Hill. Remember when Faith Hill was a big, she was kind of the going country star in the 90s and early 2000s. And when she heard Lori's record, Bitter Town, she recorded, I think, 6 of the 12 songs on it. She was just so enamored with her. And that's the feeling that I have too, yeah.
On your CBC 40-minute full concert show, on the first track, which was called Good Lover, you
Yeah.
picked up and played a Seagull Merlin. Um,
Yeah.
is there a story behind that?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I was sort of in writing that record, that was for the record both ways. And I had sort of been stuck in a songwriting rut. I don't know that I was, I don't I hate writer's block. I don't think it was that. I just didn't really like anything I was doing. And I was at a music store in the back and I picked up one of those seagull things, which is a very silly little instrument, I'll tell you. Like it's just like I don't know what it's for. It's for somebody. It's like it's tuned in a way that anywhere you put your finger down it sounds relatively good. It's just for a layperson who can wants to strum along to something. And it really is a fun little thing. I picked it up and I started playing that riff. It was the first thing I played on it. And then my brain just started doing melody. And I just went and bought it because I didn't know I didn't know what else to do. And I was in the store still, so I just went to the front and I was like, I have to buy this. I think it was like $180 or something. And then I just bought it and then I went to the car and I wrote the rest of it. I think I probably could have done it on the guitar, but I felt like you never know. So you're like, I think I have to do this right now, which is the best way to do a song. If it's happening, you got to kind of do it, unfortunately.
What other
And
acoustic?
then I had to play it in that concert. I had to take this silly thing around. Eventually, I learned how to play it on the guitar as well. But in that concert, I think I was still doing it on the little thing. Yeah,
Yeah, it was a great start for me. What other acoustics did you play on that set?
that would have been. I would have had been playing my hummingbird. I had a hummingbird that I played for a long time, and I don't really play it a crazy amount anymore. And then I would have had a Martin double O, or maybe it's triple O, the Martin triple O 15 or 18, the mahogany one, which is the OM shaped body one. And it's like low profile. And I think I would have still had that one with a LR bags in it, like a passive LR bags in it. Like the indie guy really was the indie guy guitar. I was very concerned with what my guitars were saying about my indie cred at that time in my career, I think.
Talking about your indie cred, I know that you like Oasis and Nirvana, but
Yeah.
one thing that really surprised me about what you said was that you're obsessive about listening to rap music.
Yeah, I mean, I that's what I want to hear. And it's not so much true anymore, but for a good decade there, it felt like the most vital genre in a way, didn't it? Like it felt like the things that were most prescient were coming out of that genre. And it feels like it's shifting slightly. But yeah, I mean, I'm so obsessed with language and I'm so obsessed with just this like the symbology of hip hop. I love the idea of like you'll hear a new song, you'll love it, and then there will be like 6 or 7 points of reference that you don't understand because you're not a specific member of the culture, and it's sort of codified to exclude you. And sort of finding out what those slang words mean in hip hop is always a joy to me. So just reading through a whole song is really fun. I just love the language, and I love how the language is being used for their own devices in a really specific way.
It's a quick fire question for a bit of fun. Tupac or Eminem?
I mean, that's a tough one. I would say I think probably for my generation it was Eminem. When Tupac was out, it was like I liked Notorious B.I.G. more. I will admit. So I will say probably Eminem, although Eminem is not my favorite.
And Drake, of course, your Canadian buddy. Do you like
Yeah,
Drake?
I do like Drake, although it's interesting. And when you live in Toronto, he's sort of like around all the time. It's hard to not be cynical about him because he's around, you know what I mean? In the air all the time, seems like.
You've got a really heavy touring schedule this year, Australia, Canada, and the US. You're touring nearly all year. Um, Could you tell me two things that you love about touring and one thing that you really despise about it?
Um, I go to art galleries like crazy when I'm touring, and I love art gallery. I love looking at paintings. I'm trying to see every Van Gogh available in the world. And so I love that. I love being able to just go to cultural things like that quickly. And when you're on tour, you can generally do it alone, which means you can rip through a gallery really quick. You don't have to adhere to anybody else's schedule and just see the stuff you want to see. And I like that. I like walking a lot. I love how my step count gets up to 20,000 steps a day when I'm on tour. It feels really good. Keeps my mind good. I feel like I'm quite healthy on tour. A thing I don't like about it, of course, is that it ruins my family life. I'm away a lot, and everybody is. I mean, that's an easy answer, but everybody is sort of disadvantaged by how much I have to go away, and it gets harder. I thought it would get easier as the kids got older. It's getting harder as the kid gets older. So I know why people who are at my age are sort of, why they get soured on this career because it's really hard on your private life.
Donovan, thank you so much for the work you do, which people obviously love. You help so many people, and best of luck with your album and your tour this year.
Paul, thank you for all of these thoughtful, wonderful questions. That was really a joy, and I mean, like those were some of my favorite questions I've ever received. So thank you. I appreciate so thoughtful of you. I appreciate you doing so much thinking about the questions. Thank you, and thanks for all the kind words.
You take care.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you.
Bye bye.